Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way YouTube channel. My name is Ryan McGinlay, and today I'm delighted to be joined by a special guest in Ryan Fitzsimons at Ryan Stephen F on the X handle. Ryan, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. It's weird being up and talking about Celtic so early for a change, but you know what? I'm excited to be in the passenger seat, as you called it, for once. So, I let's talk about Celtic, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Tony's day off today. That's the reason why he's not on the show, but he'll be back tomorrow, guys. Don't worry. Before we get started, if I could just direct everybody's attention to the ticker tape that isn't even on the screen just now, let me just click it on. If you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, you'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love. Visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. We've got 3 new pieces on there this morning. We've got a piece from Kevin McKenna discussing the board and their spending with regard to the Champions League, how they're behaving as a board in general. We've also got a piece from Tony Haggerty talking about how Celtic need to emulate Martin O'Neill's Champions League season, where home games were vitally important. They were one of the only teams to get put out despite gaining 9 points. I think that was a record for how many points they got despite not qualifying out of the group stage. And then there's my stats bomb piece, which looks at all the XGs, OBVs, all the stats to do with the game on Tuesday night, which has felt like a lifetime ago, that game. I don't know about you, but it feels like it's
Aye.
ages ago. Yeah, all of that is available on the website if you visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Also, if you can, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. The boost that we've had over the past month or so has been absolutely incredible. The viewers keep on going up and up, so we really do appreciate all the help that you're giving us. If you do want to support us just that little bit extra, then please subscribe on the YouTube channel using the big button below. So yeah, we'll get into talk about Celtic and everything to do with Celtic just now. I think the first place, the place that's best to start off this morning is probably going back the way to Tuesday, because I know you've did quite a few videos, but I've not managed to watch them yet with regard to the reaction of the Feyenoord game. Just what's your overall thoughts on that game, about what transpired in the keep, and what your hopes are basically for the group going forward after that first result.
Well, now that we're a couple of days removed for the game, it's easier to look at it more level-headed than the instant frustration that you feel when the final whistle goes. But I mean, I still echo those same thoughts that I did at come full time. Really disappointing the way that we shot ourselves in the foot again and left ourselves with little to no chance of coming back in that game. I thought for the first 45 minutes up until we conceded that first goal, there was enough evidence there to suggest that Celtic could actually get something in the game. I thought that we kept ourselves in it well, that we actually created a couple of decent chances, and Feyenoord looked really ordinary on the night. So almost going into half time, I thought to myself, you know what, I'm happy with this. I would have bit your hand off for a 0-0 at half time if you asked me before the game. But then obviously we concede a silly goal. We get 2 men sent off in the second half. We leave ourselves with, as I said, no chance of coming back, and that's frustrating because once again, Celtic are the masters of their own downfall. But listen, I think there's enough positives when we had 11 men on the park to suggest that we can be optimistic in this group, that we can maybe fight against these teams at Celtic Park. But we really need to learn from these mistakes. And I know that the manager, after the game, put a bit of it down to inexperience and maybe that coming into play when it comes to the red cards. But inexperienced or not, these are professional players. They've got to realise these mistakes, and we can't repeat them if we want to do anything.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you've said there. It seems as if it's Groundhog Day every year with the Champions League or Europa League, depending on what competition Celtic are playing their trade in or competing in. These mistakes seem to shoot Celtic in the foot, and they're all self-imposed. The first goal, regardless of who you want to blame, whether it be the wall, whether it be Joe Hart. I know there's been a bit of discourse online over who is directly to blame. I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I think it's 50-50, maybe more so the goalkeeper, because he leaves that space wide open on his right-hand side. But yeah, these are, and as I said in my stats piece last night, it was like 0.15 in XG. The chance was, it's a chance that Joe Hart should not be letting into his goal, and yet somehow it happens. It's a good hit from Stengs, but at the same time, it's one of those ones that a top-class goalkeeper, you would assume, would stop in Europe. You know, that's the sort of bread and butter. I mean, we seen last night there was other goalkeepers that made similar howlers, so it shows that it doesn't just happen to Celtic goalkeepers and goalkeepers in general. And it can happen to anybody. But you know, it's these fine lines. I think fine lines is the big thing in Europe. You're going to get punished if you don't tighten up at the back, if you stay resolute. You know, you were saying 45 minutes, 46 minutes. We would have all been delighted going in at half time, nothing each. But that goals change games and they change team talks, and it certainly did in that. Do you think that it was a tall order once we conceded that first goal, and then the red card pretty much compounded the result basically and finalised it?
Yeah, it changes the way that we approach the game. It changes how you approach half time, as you said. That it kind of rips up the team talk as you're going in there. What's annoying for me is it feels like we can compete and we can go toe to toe with certain sides in the Champions League. Feyenoord evidently being one of them for a lot of the game the other night, but I feel like these teams just know year after year that all they have to do is wait it out, because Celtic are going to make a mistake, because Celtic are going to create their own problems. And teams are more than happy, I think, to keep the ball and do what they need to. And then we'll give them an opportunity, we'll give them a goal. And that's something that we need to eradicate from our psyche, almost. Because it's, for me, and I said this a number of times on my own channel, I said it with Sam yesterday on his channel, it transcends managers, it transcends squads. This is a problem that's been at Celtic for you know, the last 5-10 years. When it comes to European football, and until that's eradicated from our game, then teams know they're going to have easy pickings with Celtic. So yeah, there's a lot that needs to change, Ryan. But as you said, it changed every aspect of the game once we went 1-0 down. Yeah,
and even though it was pretty much a negative night in terms of the result, I think there was some impressive performances. Again, I hark back to the stats bomb piece that I did. Matt O'Reilly's defensive numbers in particular are incredible for a player that, you know, doesn't really look as if he's the sort of player to get stuck in. He's maybe more of a guile player, a flair player that likes to get on the ball and make things happen on the offensive end. But, you know, his tackles and interceptions, he led Celtic in those regards. Get a couple of clearances in as well. For your midfielder, who I think he was playing in a more deeper role again. That seems to be the role that he's going to be playing, especially against better teams, maybe against Rangers and against European teams as well. He's playing in that deeper role where he can create, and maybe Hatate plays further forward. I don't know what's your view on that, but it might negate Hatate's involvement, because he likes playing in the deeper end, the deeper side of proceedings. I don't know what's your sort of opinion on that. I know you've got to play Callum McGregor. You know, he's the captain, and he's going to have to play games. He's the mouthpiece, he's the centrepiece, he's the cornerstone, whatever adjective you want to describe him. That's basically Callum McGregor. But do you think there's that position, that number 8 position, do you think that's up for grabs between Matt O'Reilly and Rio Hatate? Because I think you've got to get the best out of players. You know that Matt O'Reilly can play that number 10 role, but Rio Hatate really hasn't shown it so far in that number 8. Do you think the two have to switch in order to get the best out of both of them? And also, do you want to just touch upon Matt O'Reilly's individual performance? Because I thought he was one of Celtic's best players in the park again.
Yeah, listen, I think it's always difficult when you come into these games and then you start to predict the team and who you think's going to play. I always find it really difficult to predict who's going to play where in the midfield, because even though I love our midfield three, and I think that there's evidently a best midfield three at Celtic, being McGregor, O'Reilly and Hatate, I think it's always hard to determine who's going to be sitting where in that midfield. So I think that you could be right in saying that maybe it is time for Hatate to be pushed a little bit further up the park, and maybe there is some sort of switching around to be done there. But it's so difficult because they've got so many advantages to where they play, because they've got different qualities in their games. I'm sure Brendan Rodgers knows what he wants. Has that quite been executed yet? No. And I think there's probably been difficulty with that as well, considering Hatate's been injured for a few weeks. I think that ideally Brendan Rodgers would have probably wanted these three to play together more than they have this season. But if you look at the opening games of the season, they've not got that opportunity a hell of a lot. And for some, there was a lot of criticism on the Tuesday night for Hatate in the way that he was playing. I've seen a lot of people online kind of losing their mind over Hatate's performances of late. But I think
the attitude came. The attitude,
all that kind of been brought back up. And I think for me, it looked as though Hatate was maybe back a game too soon. I don't know if he didn't look ready, and I think that's a big part of it. So I think over time, no matter where they're playing in that midfield three, we will see it gel together. But Matt O'Reilly, he's got to be the guy that kind of brings the best out of everybody, no matter who's playing alongside him, no matter if it's David Turnbull, if it's Rio Hatate, if it's Odin Thiago Holm, whoever it is, Matt O'Reilly, his individual performances have been that good that he can enhance everybody around him. And I think even on Tuesday night, you can see Matt O'Reilly once again, through certain phases of play, show the quality of player that he is. He's a real key in this Brendan Rodgers team. So I want to see how it develops when Rio Hatate's fully fit and when he's back to his best, because then maybe I think we'll see that solid foundation between the two of them back and the fluidity back. It's just about being patient, I suppose, and trusting what the manager has in his plans.
Yeah, I think you witnessed what Rio Hatate can do half fit against Dundee. You know, he didn't have to do too much on the pitch to show that aura and that personality in the middle of the park, and I think that really did help get the second and the third goals in the game. It was that drive forward that was the difference in solidifying Celtic's result at home on Saturday. But yeah, there were a couple of positives to take from the game. I noticed a comment coming in, or a question coming in rather, from Blake. Blake, thanks very much for coming in. With Lagerbielke missing the Lazio game and Phillips potentially being injured, who starts at the back for you guys? Well, I think we're hoping that Nat Phillips, he's playing down south. Nat Phillips, we're hoping that Nat Phillips is fit and available for that Lazio game, because if he's not, then Celtic face an even more bare bones defence. Yeah, I think Nat Phillips.
Do you think it would be too quick to suggest that Vickers might be back? I think that it's probably just a week too early, isn't it? Because Brendan Rodgers did say that he was hoping he'd be back for October, maybe early October, but because that's right at the start of the month, maybe it's a game too early for him.
Well, I think we've seen with Rio Hatate the problem when you bring players in too quickly. There's two problems, because they might not be up to match speed or match sharpness, and then they might put in a bad performance, you know, or they could re-aggravate an injury. They could they're just back. You've got to be so careful when it comes to bringing these guys back into the fold, because you know they've been out for a while. Carter Vickers' long-term health is the most important thing here, regardless of instant results. You know, as much as Celtic want to do well in the Champions League and progress, whatever that means, first, second or third, probably going to need to be second or third at this point, but his long-term health is far more important, and there's so many games in the season. I don't think that Celtic can really rush this player back when he's going to be so important for the rest of the season. If he is 100% fit and everything's fine and he's been training for weeks, then I've got no problems with throwing him back in, but he's got to be 100% ready. Yeah. If there's any risk or any sort of dubiety with his situation, then he can't play, because he's just so important to Celtic. Celtic's best defender. He makes Celtic twice the team, in my opinion, and yeah, there is no point in rushing him back if he's not fully fit and ready to compete and contribute.
I agree. It's going to be interesting as well to get more of an update on Phillips. Hopefully we hear a little bit more before the Livingston game in regards to how long he'll be out for. He rolled his ankle, so hopefully it's nothing too serious. Maybe he'll be fine for that game. But it is nuts when you look at the calendar how close we actually are to this Lazio game. You know, it's only a couple of weeks away. So, you know, as you said, the best thing to do is not rush people back. I mean, imagine if Cameron Carter-Vickers came into the team and then suddenly aggravates something and then he's out for both Atletico games. You've just shot yourself in the foot again. So I guess come October 3rd, the day before the game, we'll probably have a better idea as to what centre-half partnership will be the most suitable for Lazio.
Yeah, but I think as it stands just now, it looks as if now you don't want to preempt things, but Nat Phillips might need to get extended till the end of the season, just given the injury situation, especially with Mike Nawrowski. But that's a chat for another day. We could talk about the defenders all day. I just want to get on to the next game. The good thing for Celtic when competing in Europe is they've only got a couple of days to rectify it and make things right in terms of their form. You know, Celtic have won the past couple of games. It's as disappointing the Feyenoord result they were, and for a large majority of the first half. Just that first goal, and then the second goal compounded things along with the 2 red cards. We could talk about Odenholm, but I think we both say the same things. You know, it was a challenge from a young player who probably should know better, but I think he knew as soon as he slid in like that and got contact. The way the Feyenoord player jumped about was ridiculous, but at the same time, you've
got to
the
make
referee a decision
theatrics of it in the big stage, haven't you? You've got the audience, you've got millions watching
stage,
at home.
It's a drama.
Aye, exactly. It's like the WrestleMania of football, isn't it?
Yeah, I knew there'd be a wrestling sort of nod somewhere in this podcast. We couldn't stop it, guys. But yeah, that's the thing. You know, with it was a young challenge. You know, 20 years old. He's going to learn. We've seen enough from Odin Thiago Holm to assume that he is going to be a really good player for Celtic in the years ahead. Maybe not an automatic first pick at the moment, but he's an exciting young player, and he's a player that will learn from his mistake. I seem to remember Near Beaton doing the same in his European debut for Celtic as well. He made that rash challenge against Ajax and get sent off about 5 minutes after coming on. You know, if Odin Thiago Holm wins as much trophies as Near Beaton in his Celtic career, then he'll be doing something right. So, you know, a bit of a mixed player near Beaton, but you can't argue with the trophy haul that he amassed in his Celtic career. Just going on to the game at the weekend, that's the good thing, as I was saying. If you've got a game on Tuesday, you'll have a game on Saturday or Sunday. Europe, that's one of the perks of being one of these big teams that play in Europe and have that 3-4 day turnaround. But Brendan Rodgers goes to a ground that he's never won at before. You know, that's a very interesting statistic. I think he's only played there once or twice.
Well, I actually done a bit of research before we came on stream, because all week I've been thinking to myself, I don't want us to return back to the form that we used to have at Livingston. I was like, oh God. And I went to go and look it up to see what his results at Livy was, and I cannot believe that he only played Livingston twice as Celtic manager. Like, that is
was it
twice.
2 draws?
Once at Celtic Park, once at Livy, and it was only one was a draw. It was a 0-0 draw on the 11th of November 2018, and his only other time playing them was the 4th of August 2018 when we beat them 3-1. That was the only 2 occasions that he managed to take them on, because every game we played them after that, I think that he'd left. I think by the looks of it, I'm looking. I've got the fixture list ahead of me here, and I cannot. I thought that he drew at Livy twice, but no, only the once. So surprised by that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's definitely a record, even though he's only been to the Toni Macaroni Arena once. It's a record that he needs to eradicate. You know, Celtic in the past couple of years, I know Ange Postecoglou lost that game, the game that Andrew Shinnie scored. You know, Celtic started that game so well. They got hit with a counter-attack, and then Celtic attacked for the whole game. It seemed as if Jota was just putting balls in the box for Kyogo, who just couldn't get on the end of them, and it ended a 1-0 loss. That was during that start of the season, where I think a lot of fans weren't sure about what Ange Postecoglou was doing, but they maybe seen the style of play, especially at home, but away from home, the results weren't coming. And there was a bit of doubt as to where Celtic would go. Ultimately, it turned out that season turned out not too bad. We know how that one ended, but that was one of those breakout games, or one of those watershed moments where Celtic had to improve, and I think they did in the next game against Aberdeen, or I think it was Rangers that they get beaten, then Aberdeen. So yeah, it was round about those fixtures. But Brendan Rodgers has got an unwanted record to break at the Toni Macaroni. You know what it's going to be like with the pitch, with the opposition manager who's going to play a low block. You know the counter attack that they're going to play. What's your feelings going into this match? I know Ange Postecoglou had a really good record towards his in his second season and his first season when he got that win, when he broke that terrible record that was going about. What's your opinions on this game, especially playing on a plastic pitch against a manager that you know will use all his tactics and skills to sort of sit behind the ball and look for the counter?
Well, I'm looking forward to the trip itself. I'm going, so that's good. As for the 90 minutes in between both journeys, I'm not so sure, because we know how difficult it can be going to Livingston. And Livingston, that start this season, have kind of surprised me. I didn't think they'd be in amongst it this year, but you know, they're floating in around the mid-table right now. I think they might be 6th, 7th. I can't remember exactly where they are on the table, but they're floating in and around there. They're definitely still putting up a fight. So you know for a fact that we're going to go there on Saturday with them right up for it. And David Martindale knows how to frustrate Celtic, and he'll certainly want to try and take some points. So it's a must win for me. Just so purely down to the mood at Celtic at the moment. I think that the more games we win, we'll get more fans kind of. I just don't like seeing the reaction after Tuesday, and I know a lot of people have kind of looked at it level-headed, and a lot of people are like, right, well, okay, it's Champions League, it's difficult, but I think if we don't win on Saturday, there is that chance that a few more people start to sway negatively again, and I don't think it will become toxic, but I just don't want to risk that feeling that we kind of garnered after the derby and after Dundee to kind of go away already. So I think Brendan Rodgers needs to set out the team to do something different. Ange Postecoglou done something different. You know, when he came into Celtic and we went to Livingston, we were playing football that was different to what we were doing under Rodgers, under Lennon, the first few visits to Livingston when they came back into the league. He attacked the game. He didn't care about the surface. We approached it the same as always. And we made the most of a tight park to play on. So Rodgers needs to take all those sort of tips on board, and he needs to make sure that we go there with the same intent to win the game as we would at Celtic Park, despite and obviously the intent is going to be there to win. I'm not saying that he would go there with any other intentions, but I think that he just needs to go out there with the same ruthlessness as always and try and settle the game early. I would like us to get some early goals in the game and make sure that we don't allow ourselves to come under that same pressure that we did against St Johnstone at Celtic Park, because it'll be even more difficult. If you're 0-0, 60, 70 minutes in at Livy, it's going to be even more difficult than what it was against St Johnstone at Celtic Park. So we need to get the job done early, we need to score goals, and we need to just, we can't allow Livy to frustrate us, because if we allow them to do that, it'll be easy pickings for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll hear from Brendan Rodgers either today or tomorrow, definitely in the next 48 hours on his feelings towards this trip. I presume it would be today, because it would be 48 hours before and it gives time for the press to get their interviews sorted and their features sorted for the next couple of days. You know, it'll be interesting to hear what Brendan Rodgers has to say with regard to injury news. You know, are we any further, are Celtic any closer to some players coming back? You know, it's good to see players like Hatate back, but at the same time, you want to hear updates from some of the players that are still missing. Is it an opportunity for players to come in and stake their claim? You know, Paulo Bernardo has just joined the club. He's had fleeting minutes. Is it going to be another game for Luis Palma? You know, I don't know about you, Ryan, but I've seen a lot of negative thoughts towards Luis Palma. I thought he was one of Celtic's better players on the night. Funnily enough, I
wouldn't stretch as far to better players, but what I'll definitely say is I was nowhere near the level that some people were getting to. I know, I'm sorry to cut you off, Ryan, right? But it's been frustrating me over the last couple of days that once again we find ourselves in a situation where a guy has played 45 minutes in a Celtic shirt and folk are willing to write him off already and say that he's not good enough. I thought, you know, listen, we live in the online era of supporters, you know, like things, and especially the older supporters, they'll know this, you know, it's much more reactionary now. And we've kind of grew up with it, you know, we've had it for the last 5-10 years through our kind of key years following Celtic, but I can't believe that we're still in a position where folk are willing to write people off after 45 minutes. He was nowhere near the worst player in the park, and he was nowhere near as bad as what some people are making out. I can't wait to see more of him. And I know for a fact he's going to, and I think he's going to come good for Celtic. So I'm not going to let Tuesday night sway my entire opinion on him. Can he do better? Absolutely, but I don't think it's by any means like career over stuff for Luis Palma.
Yeah, that's Smell the Glove comes in and says, I think people, including myself, are worried Palma will turn out to be another Haksabanovic. I know you were a massive Haksabanovic fan, much like myself.
You didn't have to bring up his name. Oh, no.
I'll get him crying on the stream. You know, if anybody watches our podcast, you'll know how much he appreciates Haksabanovic. Hopefully he does well down at Stoke, you know, but I think his time is up with regard to Celtic, at least for this season, that's for sure. I thought, you know, not everything came off for Palma, but he never had, and he was trying to make things happen. Definitely not the quickest winger in the world. I think that's one thing. You know, he's got a taller frame, which should make him more of a threat from set pieces, although he might be taking the set pieces because he seems to be a specialist at that position. We've not really seen too many of them getting taken from him so far, but I'm guessing that's something that we will see in the near future. Maybe that's something that Celtic could maybe call upon and exploit with regard to Livingston at the weekend. You know, that pitch, you've got to keep the ball in the air sometimes for as long as you can. The ball can bobble on the plastic pitch if you can get the ball into the box. For even Kyogo to latch on to, but the defenders as well. You think of Lagerbielke, you think of potentially Iwata if he plays, or Scales. You know, Scales has been good the past couple of games. Then that could be a weapon that Celtic use in that away sort of arena. But I actually just want to talk about Iwata as well, because, you know, it's something that I didn't mention yesterday or on the post-match podcast. He made his first competitive minutes under Brendan Rodgers. You know, nobody's really talking about it, but that is the case. He's not played a single minute competitively for Brendan Rodgers, and then he was thrown on for 23, 24 minutes. I think it was following Odenholm's red card. He was brought on to sort of solidify things, and largely did that because. I think so. It's a bit of an odd one with Iwata, even the way that he was announced to the supporters. It was a bit of a afterthought, I thought, with the tweet that came out, basically saying, "Yeah, we did sign him." I thought this was common knowledge that he'd already signed. You know, it was that compulsory buy option. But so far, we've only seen 23 minutes of him, and in pre-season, we've only seen him play at right back, which shows that maybe Brendan Rodgers doesn't fancy him in that midfield role as of yet, and he has work to do. I think the next 3-4 months for him are massive in terms of forcing his way into this squad. I'm not really sure how he does it at the moment with the names that are ahead of him and the strength and depth that Celtic have got, both with younger players and established players. But yeah, he's got that all to do. I think if he doesn't make his move into the team for January, then he'll have to leave, because he's 26 years old. He'll be needing to play first team football regardless. What's your opinion on Iwata? Because I don't know about you, but I find it a bit of a weird one.
Yeah, I think there's a few players at the club who are in a weird sort of purgatory at the minute between Ange and Brendan, and where they find themselves now. Obviously, Ange brought in players who he maybe had a plan for, that maybe Brendan Rodgers just came in and thought, maybe not. And I think there's a lot of fans who, like Palma, they want to write off players, even though we've not seen a hell of a lot of them. Iwata is someone who I've found very hard to actually establish an opinion on, because we've seen him so sparingly. For all that it's worth, I thought that his cameo on Tuesday night was fine. You know, he came on in a difficult situation when you're down to 9 men, and I can't remember off the top of my head any glaring mistakes or anything that annoyed me. If there's any, then I'm sure the chat will correct me, but I don't remember much that made me think negatively of him. I think that for Iwata, it's just got to be really solid for him to find his way into this team. And there's a few players like that, because you look at his preferred position, and it's a defensive midfielder, as we know. That's where he's meant to be playing. Is McGregor going to shift anytime soon to allow time for Iwata? Probably not. We have an abundance of central midfielders as well, and I know not all of them are defensive midfielders, but if Brendan Rodgers wants to change things up in the middle, then I think there's a few guys that get an opportunity before him. Guys like Thiago Holm, guys like, evidently this season, David Turnbull. Now that we've brought in Bernardo as well, is Iwata going to be at the top of this list for chances? I really don't know. And once again, it's tough to take presumptions, because we don't know the manager's exact thoughts on him. But yeah, I think that he's just got to do his best when he's given the opportunities, because there's only one guy that can convince Brendan Rodgers that he's good enough to get games, and that's himself. So the cameo that he made on Tuesday, and similar that he might get in the future, he's got to take them if he wants a future here, because I don't think there's any guarantee that Tomoki Iwata has a long-term future with the club. And that's not me saying that he's not good enough, or that's not me saying I'm not a fan of him. That's just me looking at the stone-cold facts that have been put in front of us.
The numbers.
The numbers and the facts that have been put in front of us since Brendan Rodgers came into the club.
Yeah, absolutely. And as well, you know, you can forget that Celtic signed another defensive midfielder in the summer window in Kwon as well, who wasn't even registered for the Champions League squad. I think that lets you know about how much development he needs to do, long-term development. I think I know the word project gets gets put
Thrown
about
around.
a lot, but yeah, it gets thrown around a lot. I think it's a lot of people's favourite words, including myself. I do say the word project a lot. A lot of Celtic's players are projects. You can be a first team player and be a project at the same time, I say, especially in the Scottish League. But yeah, Kwon, I think, is very much a long-term one. He was playing in the second division in Korea. The good thing for him is that he's completed his military service. The same cannot be said for Yang. That's something that Yang is going to have to
I did not
rectify
even
one way
think
or
about
another.
that. Didn't even
Yeah,
think about that.
it's definitely something to have. You've got to think about, because it is
Yeah.
it's a very real thing, especially over in Korea. That's just it's the geography of what happens over there, or what is the relationship between the two sides over there. Military service is standard over there. Heung-min Son had to do the same.
Yep.
You know, he did it during lockdown, but I think he did 6 months, and he came back for the.
They came
I
back a
think he
man.
came. Yeah, he's now the captain of Tottenham. He's doing well under Ange Postecoglou, as I know he would. But Yang still has that to sort. I'm not going to say look forward to, but contend with. Kwon has did it. The good thing for these players is that sometimes they can play for their military team as well. You see that I think Cho Gi-sung did the same. He played for the military team. His military service is all done as well. He's now playing for Midtjylland and by all accounts scoring the goals. Who has done his military training too. So it's only Yang out of the 3 Korean players that Celtic currently have that has not completed his military service. So that'll be something that he needs to look out for in the coming years. Just on to Yang as well. I know we're kind of going through all the players and all the summer signings, but I think it's one of those days in between that you can talk about how the squad is done so far. I think it's been pretty positive for Yang so far. He's definitely very raw, but he's very keen to get involved. He likes to take on his man. Yes, his passing wasn't the greatest on Saturday, but if he's thrown in, I expect him to do a good job. And that assist from in the Aberdeen game, especially to Matt O'Reilly, shows everything that he's got. And he's only 21, so he's got plenty of time to improve. You would assume.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I think that Yang, someone we mentioned a guy a minute ago, Son, who is a very talented left winger in his day. When he was playing there with his best form, hopefully that's something Yang can aspire to. But genuinely think that despite being very raw, he's got a good future. I like what I see.
Yep.
Brendan Rodgers is exactly the kind of guy that I think can make him a better player. So I'm excited to see where he goes in the next few years. He's young just now, and I don't expect the final product of it being pristine, polished, and ready to go. But I just think that he's someone who offers us a good option. When you looked at our bench on Tuesday night, I'm not going to lie in saying it wasn't the most inspiring of benches. I think that we've seen better at Celtic. I think we've seen benches that inspire a bit more confidence. But one of the names that I did look at and I did see was Yang's, and I thought that given an opportunity he could maybe come on and change the game. So yeah, I like him. So I'm excited to see what happens with him.
Yeah, I think another thing that's got to be watched with regard to his game time is the fact that he's already played, half a season in Korea as well. If he does get called up for the Asia Cup, that could be another problem that comes his way in terms of getting a rest, which is maybe the reason why Yang is coming in and out of the team at this point. They've got to manage his game time. He might come on as a sub, he might start some games, but you need this fluidity in the wing positions. And yeah, you're hoping that when Marco Tellio comes back into the team as well, or when he comes into the team for the first time when he's back from injury, he can provide another spark on either wing, because it seems as if he's quite a fluid player. It's going to have to be very fluid because, as much as Jota was a first pick in the team, and it's hard to talk about Jota because he's not getting his game over in Saudi Arabia. He's basically just sitting about. I don't think he got a loan deal as well, so he's pretty much stuck in this purgatory state. It's a waste for a player that's so talented, but that's the cards you're dealt with, unfortunately. It's very much an emerging league in the Saudi league, and they're still figuring it out, and he's one of the downfalls of that. But in terms of other positions, I think players like Tillio, Abada when he comes back, Maeda, Yang and Palma, they've all got to come in and out of the team and provide that spark game upon game. I don't think there's going to be any certain starters in the team. It's going to be what player fits for what game. There might be players that fit better at Celtic Park, and then there might be players that play better away from home, maybe on a slight counter-attack basis. But there's options there. I'm not saying that all of them are fully first-team ready, but there certainly are options there for Brendan Rodgers to work with. And I don't know about you, but I'm quite excited about the wingers going forward. I think there's plenty to look forward to, and it's always good to see some fresh faces as well.
Well, I'm very excited to see Marco Tilio because while he's been out and while I've been trying to put videos together, I've been trying to do a lot of reading into him to see what we could expect, especially with Abada dropping out. And people from Australia and not even just Australians, they rant and rave about him. There was one clip from a podcast in particular that it was a Champions League preview, and I don't know, you might have seen it in social media. It was sent forward to me off Twitter, but it was somebody, you know, ranting and raving about Tilio and how he was going to be one of the surprise performers in the Champions League this season. Now, this was before the squad was registered, so obviously that's not going to happen this year. But you know, these guys were saying, I watched the A-League all last season, and Marco Tilio was by far the standout, and he's going to light the Champions League on fire, and yada yada yada. So I don't like to just like buy into what other people are saying in case it's, you know, it comes back and slaps you in the face and you're left looking like a dafty. But he's someone who I'm genuinely just excited to see because he might offer something different. He's got a fire now to try and start his Celtic career, fire in his belly. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about moving forward when it comes to the wings. I think that a lot of people still feel a bit shortchanged that we haven't maybe signed that ready-made Jota replacement, but once again, just to reiterate a point from earlier, there's no point in writing folk off after 45 minutes, aka Luis Palma. Who knows, maybe he will be the Jota replacement. One of the things that I was thinking to myself was if football was a game judged on, if footballers were judged on 45 minutes, then I think we'd be getting to the point where me and you would be getting called up for a game, Ryan, because every footballer has had a bad 45 minutes, numerous bad 45 minutes. So it's better to be optimistic and positive rather than losing faith completely.
Yeah, and there's plenty to be optimistic about. You know, Celtic are in a great position in the league. Only played a few games, but they're already 4 points clear of their biggest rivals. I know St Mirren are running as close as well. Motherwell too. They've both had respectively great starts to the season. You think that will even itself out over the course of the campaign, and Rangers will move up. But you're hoping that Celtic can increase that gap. I know. You never know.
Who knows?
You know, wishful thinking and all that. But it's been an okay start to the season. I'm going to say it's been an okay start because we can't look past the domestic cup defeat to Kilmarnock and St Johnstone. But that one at Ibrox was massive in terms of bringing a lot of the fans back on side as well.
Yeah.
You know, as disappointing as the Feyenoord game is, I think a lot of fans didn't expect Celtic to win that game anyway. The real game that's brought fans back on side is that collection of games between Rangers and Dundee. You know, the two of those games put together, I think you've seen, at least for half an hour, 40 minutes, a good performance from Celtic. It's all about whether or not Celtic can improve upon that and bring that into the Toni Macaroni arena. Just before we get into the rest of our show, once again, can I direct everybody just to the bottom of the screen? If you visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, you'll be supporting the best quality journalism covering the club you love at Celtic. 3 pieces on today, one from Tony Haggerty, the other from Kevin McKenna, and the other one from myself. So if you are interested, there's plenty of content on there. £4 for 4 months, or if you want to take out just a single month subscription, it's $2.99. Please get involved. We really do appreciate your support, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. It's getting bigger. We're trying to do daily videos as well as weekend pre-recorded videos too. So if you are interested, you want to support us even further, please press the subscribe button. It is really greatly appreciated. I just want to open the floor to anybody in the comments section that has any questions as well regarding Celtic. I just want you, before we wait for some questions maybe coming in from the comments, Ryan, what's your overall feeling of this season so far? You know, we've had the ups with the 3-0 game, the 1-0 game against Rangers, and then the 3-0 game against Dundee. We've had the downs in terms of in terms of Kilmarnock, St Johnstone, and the Feyenoord. What's your opinion on the start so far in Brendan Rodgers' second tenure as Celtic manager?
Listen, obviously the big flaw on the start to the season right now is that cup exit. Really frustrating to exit the cup so early. Albeit a tough game. You know, it wasn't an easy game. It's always a tough task against Kelly. Apart from that, listen, if you told me at the start of the season that come match day, how many games are we in now? What is the actual table looking like? I need to just get it up very quickly.
I think it's 5 or 6 games in there.
So I don't get my stats wrong. 5 games in. If you told me that 5 games into the season we'd have 4 wins, we'd have 1 draw, the best goal difference in the league, I'd be happy with that, on the understanding that the draw might have been maybe at Pittodrie, might have been at Ibrox. It just so happens it was at home to St Johnstone. Nonetheless, we're unbeaten in the league. I think that we have been gradually getting better domestically as well, which is good. It was never going to be instantly fantastic switching from Ange Postecoglou to Rodgers. As good as a manager he is, there was always going to be a period of change. There was always going to be a period of development and just adapting. And hopefully that's us past the Derby win into seeing that now. We shot ourselves in the foot on Tuesday night, but I still believe there's room for optimism when it comes to Europe. Generally, I'm happy with how it went. Maybe that's the massive Rodgers fanboy in me. I can understand why some other people aren't as happy with the start to the season. I think that's up for dispute. But no, listen, I'm pretty happy right now. As long as we keep winning games in the league and see an improvement against Lazio in a couple of weeks' time, I think there's a lot to be positive about.
Yeah, absolutely. Hazel Finn comes in. Thank you once again for your comment. She's always here in the comment section, so really do appreciate your continued support. She's asking, do you think there's potentially scope for more game time for O, especially in the upcoming games? It's a bit of a difficult one, I would say, because Kyogo has been in good form, yet he was very, very ineffectual. On Tuesday, he was putting in the hard yards defensively, trying to press the opponents. He was one of Celtic's better pressers on the night. But when you look at the passing network, there was hardly any passes going to Kyogo's feet, or any passes getting to the box to Kyogo. That's where Kyogo thrives. And if he's ineffectual, then you're basically playing with 10 men. As harsh as that sounds, he needs to be on the ball. He needs to be involved in the game, and he wasn't on Tuesday. But as Hazel's asking about he joined the club in January. You know, I thought he had a really good end to the season. He scored against Hibs. I know that was a poor game all in, but he got his goal. He should have probably scored more in that game. And then in the Aberdeen game, he really came alive, got those 2 goals. Maybe should have scored in the Scottish Cup final as well. He was putting himself about in that game too. He's 21, 22 years old still a young player. Definitely playing back up to Kyogo at this moment in time. But do you think that Saturday could be a game for him? I know he won't start the game, but he could come off the bench and potentially make an impact. You know, a bigger, imposing threat.
Yeah, definitely, especially in the Plastic Park against a team like Livingston, a manager like David Martindale. I think there's a lot of attributes physically anyway to O's game that can really help in that sort of game. I like him, I do, and I know he's someone who, just like a few others, have got a really kind of split opinion at the minute within the fan base. But once again, O's in a situation, and you never want to make an excuse for anybody. Like, it's so easy and cheap to say this, but you look at the form Kyogo's been on since O's came to the club. You know, it's been hard for him to get consistent minutes because Kyogo's been so good. Kyogo's undroppable. So it's always getting very few starts at the club, and then when you're coming on with half an hour to go, you know, sometimes the intensity of the game's died down. You've maybe won a game, and it's hard to have maybe as much of an impact as what Kyogo would in the early stages of a game. So I think over the next few games, especially with European football being thrown in, there is opportunities for O to get more minutes, especially with Kyogo at the weekend. You've seen that he had the shoulder issues again. He had to go back, pop his shoulder back into place. Who knows? I think that maybe there is some more minutes ready in the waiting for him now. And if he does get them, he needs to take them. Once again, somebody who has to try and win more fans on his side. But I like him. I think he's got something different to his game. So yeah, hopefully we do see a bit more of him.
Yeah, I think if he split the game time, or not even split the game time, but manage the game time a bit better, it means that Kyogo won't have as much opportunity to re-aggravate that injury. You know, it's an injury that will need surgery. I think that's everybody knows that. It's the sort of thing that's hanging over his shoulder, over his shoulder, literally on his shoulder. That was I didn't even mean that. That's just your luck, isn't it? 1 out of 100. But yeah, it's definitely something that's going to need to get rectified sooner rather than later. It doesn't seem to be affecting him just now. Look at the goals he scored. Look at the goal he scored against Dundee. Look at the goal he scored against Rangers. It hasn't affected him too much at this point in time, but it's going to get to one of those places where you're hoping at the end of the season you can do what you did with Kyogo, what you did with Cameron Carter-Vickers, or the other way about rather. If you can do that and give him that time to recuperate and time for next season, then that would be ideal. But it's just how the fixtures lie and how Celtic do with regard to the season, both in the cup and domestically. But yeah, I think O is definitely a player that needs more game time. I think he shot himself in the foot with regard to not talking about his injury when he picked it up against, was it Athletic Club?
Aye. I forgot that happened actually. Aye. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Brendan Rodgers, I don't know about you, but he seemed a bit frosty about it, about him not alerting the squad. You know, communication is key. You can't be aggravating injuries or aggravating them even further by shooting yourself in the foot like that, basically, by playing on. I know you want to be brave and continue to play games, but, you know, you've got to look at the long term. You've got to look at the bigger picture. I don't think O did that. He wanted to play on, and he got that injury. He's back in the squad. You know, you've got to let bygones be bygones. And you're hoping that he can make an impact starting at the weekend. It could be a good game for him. I don't think he's going to start the game. It'll be Kyogo that starts the game. Kyogo starts most games, if not every game. But, you know, if the game is finished with half an hour to go, or if it's still on the balance and you want to bring O on as a threat up front, you could even put Kyogo back one and play him as the attacking midfielder. Because he goes deep anyway, and O could stay up front. O likes to play deep as well. The two interchange, so it'll be interesting to see where he plays in the short, medium, and long term future. But I still think there's a really, really high ceiling for O, and you're just hoping that a manager like Brendan Rodgers can get the best out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to talk about. There was somebody else that brought in a comment in the comments section. Chill Pill says Alistair Johnson to play centre back. We know that he is imposing enough to play that position. I think he's played there before for the Canadian national team. I think the only reason you would play him there is if there was a right injury crisis.
If there was
either that shortage. Either that or you're playing free at the back and you need somebody that's more mobile down that right-hand side. But I think that's very much an emergency position. You know, we need to get Celtic need to get their emergency players back, never mind emergency positions, because Nat Phillips, you know, he's brought in as an emergency and now he's on the treatment table. So it's not an ideal situation.
Some amount of luck, can't we? Some amount of luck. Like, you couldn't write the centre-half tragedies this season. It's straight out an Agatha Christie book. It's dropping like flies. I just don't know what we've done to deserve it, to be quite honest, Ryan.
You know, these are the pitfalls that happen in a season. You know, injuries are happening everywhere. They're happening on the other side of the city as well. So it's not just Celtic that are going through, but it seems as if Celtic always have a spot in the season where they have a multitude of injuries that pile up, and then all of a sudden you're seeing players that you've not really seen in a while become starters for the team. These things even themselves out over the course of a season. We say that with numerous things, but it will be the case in injuries as well. Celtic will have a fit team. You're hoping towards the business end of the season they'll have a lot of players fit, back and available to basically go full tilt for the league and Scottish Cup double, or for whatever they're doing in Europe at that time, whether that be in the Champions League or the Europa League. But yeah, we've gone 47, 48 minutes. I think we'll leave it at that, Ryan. Before we finish, once again, I know I'm plugging the website and the YouTube before, but quite a lot in this, but I'm going to do it again. Please visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Also subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really do appreciate all the support that everyone's given us. You know, plenty of articles going on there, daily articles. We've got article schedules for tomorrow and the day after. So we've got loads to look forward to on the Celtic Way website. If you are interested, please give us a subscription. We can't do it without you. £2.99 a month or £4 for 4 months. Whatever one suits you better, basically. We've got options for people. And also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's completely free of charge. And yeah, it's really helping us, the amount of subscribers we're getting. We're trying to catch up to Ryan. We're not there yet with regard to his channel, but little by little we'll try and get up to his sort of stratosphere. Ryan, once again, I really do appreciate you coming on to the podcast. I really enjoyed the discussion. I feel like we've went through the whole team, or most of the team.
I know, I feel like there's like every player that possibly we could have discussed at some point. We've even talked about Haksabanovic, for God's sake. Right, we've made it through quite a number.
Yeah, absolutely. We leave no stone unturned on this podcast. We talk about anything and everything. Tony will tell you the same. As for Tony will be back tomorrow. He's having a well-deserved day off today, so you'll see him tomorrow. He'll preview all of the... He'll preview the Livingston game as well as what Brendan Rodgers has said today. We're presuming that his press conference is today, so we'll hear more from him later on. That'll be on the website too. I'll be off tomorrow, so it'll be Tony and somebody else. I think he's still trying to source somebody to come on for Friday, so you'll be greeted with another special guest. All that's left for me to say is thank you very much to everybody for the comments. We really do appreciate it. We've had quite a few viewers on this morning. Thank you very much, Ryan, for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed being on the Celtic Way Morning Briefing.
I'm just going to go and drop a wee message in the chat saying thanks to everybody. So thank you everybody who's been listening. It's been a pleasure to be on.
Thank you very much again. I really do appreciate you jumping on, especially at late notice as well. Thank you everybody for the comments and the views as always. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow to discuss all things Celtic. But until then, enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, just enjoy things. Cheers.